New York City's skyline is, honestly, one of the most famous in the world, a powerful symbol of ambition, creativity, and change. Every building tells a part of this incredible story, standing as a testament to the people who dreamed, designed, and built this metropolis. From the earliest days of Dutch settlers to the gleaming towers of the 21st century, the architecture of New York is a living museum, open for everyone to explore. It's a story written in brick, stone, iron, and glass. Each chapter reveals a different era, a new set of ideas, and a fresh vision for what the city could become. To really understand New York, you have to learn to read its buildings, because they hold the memory of its past and the promise of its future. Walking through the streets of Manhattan is like traveling through time. In a single block, you might see a humble brick church from the 1700s standing proudly in the shadow of a soaring glass skyscraper built only yesterday. This constant conversation between old and new is what gives the city its unique energy and character. The story of its architecture isn't just about styles and materials, it's about the very soul of New York. It's a tale of immigration, of technological breakthroughs, of economic booms and busts, and of the unending human desire to build something lasting. This journey through the city's architectural history will show you how each period contributed to the magnificent and complex urban fabric we see today. This essay will guide you through the ages of New York City's architecture, starting with its colonial beginnings. We'll explore how different cultures and technologies shaped the city's growth, from the simple wooden houses of New Amsterdam to the grand cast-iron palaces of SoHo. We'll look up at the iconic skyscrapers that redefined the limits of what was possible, and we'll examine the movements that sought to preserve the city's precious heritage. By the end, you'll see the city not just as a collection of buildings, but as a dynamic and ever-evolving masterpiece of human ingenuity, where history is not just remembered, but is actively lived in every single day. The evolution of New York's built environment is a powerful lesson in how cities grow and adapt. It shows us how practical needs like housing a growing population or creating spaces for commerce have always been intertwined with artistic expression. The architects and builders of each generation left their mark, responding to the challenges and opportunities of their time. They created structures that were not only functional but also beautiful, inspiring, and symbolic of the city's identity. As we delve into this rich history, we'll uncover the stories behind the facades and understand why New York continues to be a global center for architectural innovation and a source of endless fascination. The story of New York City's architecture begins long before the skyscrapers, in a small settlement called New Amsterdam. Founded by Dutch traders in the early 1600s, this outpost at the southern tip of Manhattan was a place of practicality and modesty. The first buildings were simple, functional structures, often made of wood, with steep gabled roofs that recalled the architecture of the Netherlands. The Dutch colonists built their homes and shops close together, creating narrow, winding streets that established a pattern still visible in Lower Manhattan today. Their influence was foundational, creating the very first urban grid upon which centuries of development would later be built, leaving a subtle yet permanent mark on the city's DNA. As the 17th century progressed, the English took control of the settlement and renamed it New York. With them came new architectural ideas, particularly the Georgian style, which was popular in Britain at the time. This style was all about order, balance, and classical proportions. It favored symmetry, with evenly spaced windows and a central doorway, often decorated with columns and a pediment. Brick became a more common building material, replacing the wood and fieldstone of the earlier Dutch period. These Georgian buildings brought a sense of formal elegance and permanence to the growing colonial town, reflecting its increasing importance as a center of trade and governance in the British Empire. Unfortunately, very few buildings from this earliest colonial period have survived. The Great Fire of 1776, which broke out during the American Revolutionary War, destroyed a significant portion of the city. Later, the relentless pace of development and the need for more modern, larger structures led to the demolition of many historic buildings. What we know about this early architecture comes from old maps, drawings, and written descriptions, which paint a picture of a small but bustling port town. These records are invaluable, as they help us imagine the city's humble beginnings and appreciate just how much it has transformed over the centuries into the global metropolis we recognize. Despite the losses, the legacy of these early Dutch and English influences can still be felt. The layout of the financial district's streets, for instance, is a direct inheritance from the days of New Amsterdam. The architectural language of the Georgian and later federal periods set a standard for civic and domestic building that would influence New York design for decades to come. This initial phase was crucial because it established New York as a place where different cultures and ideas could meet and merge, creating a unique architectural identity from the very beginning. The seeds of the city's future as a dynamic and diverse urban center were planted in these first modest structures. One of the most precious architectural treasures from New York's colonial era is St. Paul's Chapel, completed in 1766. Located in Lower Manhattan, it is the city's oldest surviving church building and a magnificent example of the Georgian style. Its design, attributed to architect Thomas McBean, features a simple, elegant stone facade and a graceful spire that once made it the tallest structure in the city. Inside, the light-filled sanctuary is adorned with classical columns and beautiful chandeliers. St. Paul's Chapel is more than just a beautiful building. It is a witness to history. It survived the Great Fire of 1776 and even served as a place of worship for George Washington after he was inaugurated as the first president of the United States. Another important building from this period is Hamilton Grange, the country home of Alexander Hamilton, one of America's founding fathers. Built in 1802 in Upper Manhattan, the house is a fine example of the federal style, which evolved from the Georgian style after the American Revolution. The federal style is lighter and more refined, often featuring elliptical fan lights over doorways, delicate decorative moldings, and a sense of balanced, understated elegance. Hamilton Grange was designed by architect John McComb Jr., and it was intended to be a peaceful retreat from the busy city below. Today, it has been preserved and moved to a nearby park, where it stands as a museum dedicated to Hamilton's life and legacy. These two buildings, St. Paul's Chapel and Hamilton Grange, are incredibly important because they represent the architectural aspirations of a young and newly independent nation. They show a move towards a distinctly American interpretation of classical European styles. The Georgian and federal periods in New York were about creating a built environment that reflected the new republic's ideals of order, reason, and civic virtue. These were not just places to live or pray. They were statements about the kind of society the founders hoped to build. They demonstrated a confidence in the future and a desire to create a city that was both dignified and beautiful, laying the groundwork for future generations. The survival of these landmarks provides a vital, tangible link to New York's past. In a city that is constantly reinventing itself, they serve as powerful reminders of where it all began. St. Paul's Chapel, in particular, gained new significance after the September 11th attacks, when it became a place of refuge and solace for recovery workers at Ground Zero. These buildings are not static relics. They are active parts of the city's story, continuing to inspire and inform our understanding of New York's identity. They teach us that great architecture is resilient, and that the best buildings can adapt and find new meaning across the centuries, connecting us to the enduring spirit of the city. The 19th century was a period of explosive growth and transformation for New York City. The Industrial Revolution brought new technologies, new materials, and waves of immigrants, turning the once compact city into a sprawling, dynamic metropolis. This rapid change demanded new kinds of buildings, taller, stronger, and built more quickly than ever before. Architects and engineers rose to the challenge, and one of the most important innovations of this era was cast iron architecture. This new technology allowed for the creation of strong, fire-resistant structures with elaborate decorative facades that could be mass-produced in a factory and assembled on site, which was honestly a revolutionary concept at the time. The SoHo neighborhood in Lower Manhattan became the world capital of cast iron architecture. Originally an area of grand homes, it was transformed in the mid-1800s into a bustling commercial district filled with shops, warehouses, and factories. The cast iron fronts of these buildings were a perfect solution for businesses that wanted impressive, elegant storefronts with large glass windows to display their goods. Architects could mimic the ornate styles of European palaces, creating facades with classical columns, intricate arches, and detailed ornamentation, all made from affordable, durable iron. The result was a district of remarkable architectural unity and beauty, which today is preserved as the SoHo Cast Iron Historic District. This new technology completely changed the way buildings looked and functioned. The strength of the iron frames meant that walls no longer needed to be thick, solid masonry to support the building's weight. This allowed for much larger window openings, which flooded the interiors with natural light, a crucial feature in the days before widespread electric lighting. This innovation was particularly important for factories and artists' lofts, where good light was essential. The prefabricated nature of the components also sped up construction dramatically, allowing the city to grow at an unprecedented pace to meet the demands of its booming economy and population. The cast-iron buildings of SoHo are a perfect illustration of how technology can drive architectural change. They represent a moment when industrial ingenuity met artistic ambition, creating a style that was both practical and beautiful. These structures embodied the spirit of the 19th century, a time of great optimism, commercial drive, and a belief in progress. They showed that industrial materials could be used to create architecture of great sophistication and elegance. The legacy of this era is a neighborhood that feels like an outdoor museum, where you can still admire the artistry and innovation of the builders who helped shape modern New York. While cast iron defined commercial architecture in the mid-19th century, another powerful style was capturing the imagination of New Yorkers, the Gothic Revival. This movement looked back to the great cathedrals of medieval Europe for inspiration, embracing pointed arches, ribbed vaults, and soaring vertical lines that seemed to reach towards the heavens. One of the earliest and most magnificent examples of this style in New York is Trinity Church, located at the end of Wall Street. Consecrated in 1846, it was designed by architect Richard Upjohn. With its intricate stonework and towering spire, it was the tallest building in the city for decades, a powerful symbol of faith and stability in the heart of the bustling financial district. The Gothic Revival style was seen as morally uplifting and spiritually resonant, making it a popular choice for churches, universities, and other important civic buildings. It offered a dramatic contrast to the classical, orderly forms of the Georgian and Federal periods. The style's emphasis on height, light, and intricate detail created spaces that were meant to inspire awe and reverence. Trinity Church perfectly embodies these qualities. Its dark, richly decorated interior, illuminated by stunning stained glass windows, creates a serene and contemplative atmosphere, providing a peaceful escape from the frantic energy of the city outside. Its presence on Wall Street remains a striking juxtaposition of the spiritual and the commercial. The influence of the Gothic style did not end in the 19th century. In the early 20th century, as architects began to build the first skyscrapers, some looked to Gothic forms to solve the aesthetic challenge of creating such tall structures. The most famous example of this is the Woolworth Building, completed in 1913. Designed by architect Cass Gilbert, it was nicknamed the Cathedral of Commerce. While it was built with a modern steel frame, its exterior is clad in beautiful, cream-colored terracotta that is intricately detailed with gargoyles, arches, and other Gothic motifs. This blend of modern technology and historical style created a skyscraper that was both a marvel of engineering and a work of art. The Woolworth Building demonstrates how architects in New York have often blended old and new ideas to create something completely original. By using Gothic detailing, Cass Gilbert gave the enormous skyscraper a sense of lightness and grace, breaking down its massive scale and drawing the eye upward along its soaring vertical lines. For many years, it was the tallest building in the world, a proud symbol of American capitalism and ingenuity. Both Trinity Church and the Woolworth Building show the enduring power of the Gothic style in New York, a style that could be adapted to express both sacred devotion and commercial might, shaping some of the city's most beloved and enduring landmarks. The late 19th and early 20th centuries marked the dawn of a new architectural era in New York City, the age of the skyscraper. Two key innovations made this vertical growth possible. The first was the development of the steel frame, which, provided a strong but relatively lightweight skeleton that could support the weight of a very tall building. The second was the invention of the safe and reliable passenger elevator by Elisha Otis. Together, these technologies freed architects from the height limitations of traditional masonry construction and honestly opened up the sky as a new frontier for development. The race to build higher and higher had begun, forever changing the city's silhouette and its identity. One of the earliest and most beloved examples of this new building type is the Flatiron Building, completed in 1902. Designed by Daniel Burnham, it stands on a distinctive triangular plot of land at the intersection of Fifth Avenue and Broadway. Its wedge-like shape is its most famous feature, but its true importance lies in its pioneering use of a steel skeleton. clad in an elegant limestone and terracotta facade that recalls the styles of the Italian Renaissance. The Flatiron Building showed that a skyscraper could be both a feat of engineering and a thing of beauty. It quickly became an icon of New York, a symbol of the city's dynamism and forward-looking spirit at the turn of the century. As buildings grew taller, they began to cast long shadows over the streets below, raising concerns about light and air. In response, the city passed the 1916 zoning resolution, a landmark piece of legislation that would have a profound impact on the shape of New York's skyscrapers. The law required buildings to be set back from the street as they rose higher, creating the iconic wedding cake silhouette that is characteristic of many of the city's towers from this period. This was not just a practical rule, it was a design constraint that inspired architects to create more sculptural and interesting forms, preventing the city from becoming a dark canyon of sheer walls. The rise of the skyscraper was a direct response to the economic realities of a city with limited land and soaring property values. Building upward was the only way to maximize space and profit. But it was also an expression of the city's boundless ambition and confidence. These early skyscrapers were more than just office buildings. They were monuments to progress, symbols of corporate power, and sources of immense civic pride. They established New York as the world's most modern city and created a skyline that was instantly recognizable around the globe, a powerful testament to the city's relentless drive to innovate and build. The 1920s and 1930s were the golden age of the New York skyscraper, and the defining style of this era was Art Deco. This glamorous and optimistic style celebrated modernity, technology, and the machine age. Art Deco architecture is characterized by its bold geometric patterns, strong vertical lines, rich materials, and intricate stylized ornamentation. It was a look that was sleek, sophisticated, and distinctly modern, perfectly capturing the exuberance of the Roaring '20s. Two of the city's most famous and beloved buildings, the Chrysler Building and the Empire State Building, are masterpieces of the Art Deco style, representing the peak of this incredible period of design. The Chrysler Building, completed in 1930, is often called the most beautiful skyscraper ever built. Designed by architect William Van Allen, it is a true monument to the automobile age. Its stunning ornamentation includes abstract eagle gargoyles that resemble Chrysler radiator caps and a breathtaking sunburst-patterned spire made of stainless steel. The building's crown, which glitters in the sunlight and is illuminated at night, is one of the most iconic features of the Manhattan skyline. The Chrysler Building was briefly the tallest in the world, a testament to the fierce competition among developers, and it remains a perfect embodiment of Art Deco's playful elegance. Just 1 year later, in 1931, the title of world's tallest building was seized by the Empire State Building. Designed by the firm Shreve, Lamb, and Harmon, it was constructed in a remarkable 1 year and 45 days. While it has a more restrained design than the Chrysler Building, it is a powerful example of Art Deco's emphasis on massing and verticality. Its famous stepped-back form, a direct result of the 1916 zoning law, culminates in a slender and iconic spire that was originally designed as a mooring mast for airships. The Empire State Building became a symbol of hope and resilience, completed during the Great Depression, and has remained an enduring emblem of New York City's strength and ambition. The Art Deco skyscrapers of this era were not just feats of engineering, they were exercises in branding and spectacle. Their grand lobbies, decorated with lavish marble, intricate murals, and gleaming metalwork, were designed to impress visitors and project an image of power and prestige. These buildings captured the imagination of the public and became instant celebrities featured in films, photographs, and art. They defined the romantic image of New York City for generations and continue to inspire awe and admiration today. The Art Deco period gave New York some of its most iconic and cherished landmarks, creating a skyline that is a timeless work of art. After the Second World War, architectural tastes began to change dramatically. The ornate decoration of Art Deco gave way to a new philosophy of design modernism. This movement, particularly in its form known as the International style, rejected historical ornamentation in favor of a clean, minimalist aesthetic. The new mantra was less is more. Architects embraced new materials like glass and steel, not just for the frame but for the entire exterior. They celebrated structural honesty, creating buildings that were sleek, rational, and transparent. This new style reflected a post-war desire for a more functional, efficient, and universal approach to architecture, and it would profoundly reshape New York's urban landscape. Two buildings in particular came to define corporate modernism in New York. The first was the United Nations headquarters, completed in 1952. Designed by an international team of architects including Le Corbusier and Oscar Niemeyer, its famous Secretariat building is a soaring slab of green-tinted glass and marble. It was a radical departure from the city's masonry towers and became a powerful symbol of post-war international cooperation and transparency. A few years later, in 1958, the Seagram Building, designed by Ludwig Mies van der Rohe and Philip Johnson, set a new standard for office tower design. Its elegant bronze and glass facade and its generous public plaza demonstrated that minimalist design could be luxurious and beautiful. By the 1960s, a more rugged and monumental offshoot of modernism known as brutalism began to appear in the city. The name comes from the French term, meaning raw concrete, which was the style's signature material. Brutalist architects created large, blocky structures with bold sculptural forms and a focus on texture and mass. This style was often used for institutional and residential buildings. A key example in New York is Kips Bay Towers, a residential complex designed by the renowned architect I.M. Pei and completed in 1963. Its exposed concrete grid and large, deeply set windows create a powerful, rhythmic pattern that is characteristic of the brutalist aesthetic. The mid-20th century was a period of intense debate about the future of the city. While modernist and brutalist buildings were celebrated for their innovation and efficiency, they were also criticized by some for being cold, impersonal, and disconnected from the city's historic fabric. This era of urban renewal saw the demolition of many older buildings to make way for new projects, which eventually sparked a powerful counter-movement focused on historic preservation. The shift to modernism and its variations represented a fundamental break with the past, creating a new layer in the city's architectural story and setting the stage for the next great debate: how to balance progress with the preservation of history. By the 1960s, many New Yorkers grew concerned that the city's architectural heritage was disappearing. The demolition of the magnificent Pennsylvania Station in 1963 was a turning point, a tragic loss that galvanized a powerful historic preservation movement. Citizens began to demand that the city protect its most important landmarks from being destroyed in the name of progress. One of the leading figures in this fight was an activist named Margot Gale, who led a grassroots campaign to save the beautiful cast-iron buildings of SoHo. Her tireless efforts, along with those of many others, helped to change public attitudes and led to the creation of powerful new laws to protect historic structures. In 1965, the New York City Landmarks Preservation Commission was established. This agency was given the authority to designate individual buildings and entire neighborhoods as historic landmarks, protecting them from demolition or inappropriate alteration. This was a monumental step that helped to save countless architectural treasures, from grand public buildings to humble townhouses. The preservation movement was not about freezing the city in time. It was about ensuring that the story of its past would remain a visible and vital part of its future. It recognized that the city's character came from its rich and diverse architectural layers and that this history was too valuable to lose. In recent decades, New York has continued to find innovative ways to blend old and new. One of the most celebrated contemporary projects is the High Line, which opened in 2009. This unique public park was created on a section of abandoned, elevated railway tracks on the west side of Manhattan. Instead of tearing the structure down, designers transformed it into a beautiful green space that winds through the city, offering stunning views and a new perspective on the urban landscape. The High Line is a brilliant example of adaptive reuse, the practice of repurposing old structures for new uses, and it has become a model for cities around the world. Today, New York's architectural story continues to unfold. The skyline has been reshaped by new icons like One World Trade Center, which opened in 2014. Standing at a symbolic 1,776 feet, it is a powerful statement of resilience and remembrance, blending sleek modern design with deep historical meaning. The city is constantly engaged in a delicate balancing act, building the innovative, sustainable, and exciting structures of the future, while honoring and preserving the rich heritage of its past. This ongoing dialogue between history and innovation is what makes New York architecture so compelling. It is a city that is always looking forward, but never forgets to look back.